Tonight on The Struggle. Net zero just as likely as COVID zero. Global interest for calamari soars. And we take a look at the wonderful world of gambling advertising. By now you would have inevitably heard about Squid Game, or better yet, binge-watched every episode of it. Currently holding the top spot on Netflix's leadership board, the show goes by many different aliases. Korean Hunger Games, Korean Alice in Borderland, or the show with Ho Young-jung. Whatever you may call it, it is undeniably a huge hit. And if anyone was winning in this game, it would definitely be the rising influence of Korean culture across the globe. K-culture has always been a phenomenon and hugely influential. Remember the movie that won the Academy Awards? Or the boy band that flooded our Maccas? Well, this show has everything in it, from food to fashion to outdoor activities. You don't want to miss it, and Squid Game is now a definite part of our society. For more on this, let's cross to our trusty weather presenter, Varen Hyde, to talk about the patterns in this unfolding storm.
Thank you, Natasha. Hi everyone, welcome back to your weekly weather forecast. 안녕하세요. Pardon my Korean. So how's everybody doing last weekend? For me, I spent the entire cold and wet week binging Netflix's current #1 TV show, Squid Game. And no guys, as it turns out, despite the constant change of weather in the show, it turns out that Squid Game isn't about life under the sea at all. Instead, it is a South Korean show that tells the story of a high-stakes survival game where people drowning in debt play a set of traditional children's games for a chance to win a huge amount of money. It took 10 years for brilliant director Hwang Dong-hyuk to get his passion project produced, and the result, a tsunami of memes, TikTok videos, and social commentaries praising Squid Game for confronting the foggy issue of socio-economic inequality and capitalism. But that's it. I'm not here to shower you with spoilers. In fact, as your favorite weather presenter, I am here to recommend for you to start binging Squid Game this week. My forecast calls for sprinkles on Thursday, which will end with an isolated storm on Sunday. Yes, talk about the perfect binging weather. And yes, Thursday does count as a weekend in Fahrenheit's dictionary. Anyways, since you're all here, I might as well spoil you on the latest entertainment forecast. With the rise of non-English films and series, Western production companies like Netflix have increased their budget to create shows out of the US. It turns out that in the present day, casting diversity isn't the only means for representation. With the popularity of Squid Games and Money Heist, I am optimistic that clear skies are finally on the cards for filmmakers all around the world to reach global audience. So, 감사합니다 and way to go, Squid Games! That is all for this week's weather forecast. Have a great night, Melbourne.
Thanks, Varen. Look, there's no doubt that many of us have turned to Netflix to escape everything that's going on. But it isn't the only way to get ad-free content. There are many platforms vying for your subscription, such as Stan, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV Plus, Paramount Plus, Binge, KO, YouTube Premium, Hayu, BritBox. I could keep going. So for those who don't want to fork out their entire weekly wage on subscription services and want to remain on the right side of the law, what's in store for those who stick to free to air? Karen Kovech from Neighbourhood Watch explains.
Picture this. You are sitting down on the couch watching primetime television, or perhaps even tuning into a sports game. This is a rarity in my house and only occurs when I have lost an argument to my husband and find a need to appease him. Do keep in mind this does not happen very often, as I am right 99.9% of the time. Anywho, you are engrossed in your television screen when an ad break commences and you reluctantly tune in, only to be bombarded with gambling, alcohol and fast food advertisements. I, for one, am absolutely outraged with the cyclical manner in which television companies choose to screen these types of ads. Addiction has always been, and continues to be, a very serious issue that should be addressed, not perpetuated by those in power who have a wide-reaching platform. How is the average person meant to enjoy their viewing when these annoying ads keep popping up, let alone somebody who struggles with a gambling or alcohol addiction? And do not even get me started on the mandatory inclusion of gamble responsibly and drink responsibly that comes up sped up at the end of the advertisements. As if the entire purpose of the advertisement hasn't been to get you to gamble and or drink exceptionally irresponsibly. This behaviour is unacceptable and I will not tolerate it. Back to you, Natasha.
Thanks, Karen. Well then, it's time to head...
G'day punters, it's a market update here from Moorbet.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes, Natasha, we've got the latest and greatest odds for the viewers to take advantage of.
Odds for what?
Glad you asked. We're creating a new market on what will be the next segment for the struggle. So first up, the odds for the next segment being something COVID related sits at $1.80, a clear favourite, a safe bet in the unsafe times we live in. But maybe it's not risky enough for you. Well, at slightly longer odds is a story attacking the Murdoch press. We all know how much uni students love to attack the Herald Sun and Sky News at every opportunity. That sits at $2.50. Or maybe you want to bundle up the COVID story with the Murdoch press story. That multi would be $3.50 for the next two stories. That's my tip for the day. And lastly, a bit of a roughie. The show might steer clear from this topic because it's legally a bit iffy, but a story on Prince Andrew sits at $71 for the risk takers.
Well, as it turns out, the next segment is actually an ad break.
Always remember, gamble responsibly.
Apologies for that. We'll be back in a tick. Welcome back. Well, in the age of misinformation and uncertainty, it's important to have reliable sources to draw on. And according to statistics, the ABC is one of the most trusted news brands in the country. But recent evidence paints a different picture, one of declining journalistic standards and a blatant disregard for the English language, threatening to undermine the prestigious reputation of the company. A series of simple spelling mistakes have plagued the ABC's online articles of late, which really isn't putting them in a good light. I mean, life has been misspelt as lif, hotspots have been confused with hotspots, and Qantas has been mistaken with however you pronounce that. And you might think that that's all a little bit pedantic, just an odd word here and there, but people are being misrepresented too. How do you think Blue Wiggle Anthony Field thinks about having his surname pluralised? And what about Victoria Chief Police Commissioner Shane Patton, who's had his first and last name combined? And let's not forget about Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, who the ABC simply refers to now as Mr. But as long as the overall meaning is still clear, I suppose there's not a huge issue, right? I mean, it's not like entire sentences are incoherent or anything. What? Looks like those funding cuts really are taking their toll on ABC.
There are no cuts.
No further cuts.
There are no further cuts because there are no cuts.
Sorry, my bad, Scotty from PR. I'd hate to think what kind of gibberish the ABC would be spouting if they were actually dealing with an $84 million budget shortfall. Quality of reporting would probably deteriorate to the level of the struggle's very own investigative journalist. Take it away, Hayley.
Thank you, fellow journalist Natasha. Hello there, I'm Hayley Hale, your go-to journalist for all things serious and important. Now, speaking of serious and important, this week there is said to have been yet another cheating scandal on the block. It's a show about building and renovations glued together, all puns intended, with lots of arguments and yelling.
Cut in front of you. Are you kidding me?
Two of us do not need to be painting one fence.
Well, it's actually all day.
That was a dick move by Daniel.
Come on, man.
Dick move.
Hey?
Knock, knock.
Who's that my house?
2021's The Block, Fan vs Faves, sees 5 teams renovating 5 family homes in a cul-de-sac located in the Melbourne suburb of Hampton. They are battling it out to win a sweet $100,000 cash prize and the money their home makes on auction day. Since the show's inception, there have been countless scandals, making this week's events particularly significant and unique. It was discovered that 2 of the show's contestants, Josh and Luke, had a copy of the show's production schedule. That's right, they knew each challenge ahead of the rest of the cast. Now, whether this scandal was scripted into the show is something I am still investigating. But given the highly transparent and authentic nature of reality TV, I'm sure I won't find much. Now, in other less important news, it turns out that climate action is actually needed. According to, sorry? Am I reading this right? The Murdoch Press. Something about green and gold. The message wasn't really that clear. Well, now that old mate Murdoch has given us the rite of passage, I guess we're now officially in the climate of change. But my sources tell me that we will have to wait a few more years until the words climate change don't have to be in the same sentence as economy. Well, that's all from me. Hayley Hale, signing off. Back to you, Natasha.
Thanks, Hayley. Well, after such a serious investigative report, let's change things up a bit and tap into our creative side. Here's Claude Fonet with some expert drawing tips.
Hello everyone, it is me, Claude Fonet. And this week we are going to be doing a masterclass on self-portraits. Now I have with me my special assistant Vincent Banjo, who also has excellent taste in art. As you can see here, Vincent Banjo loves some Claude Debussy. That's right. However, put on Vivaldi's idiotically overplayed song Spring Sequence, and he cries with disgust. I agree. Okay, so we begin with an oval. Look at that, perfect. Now, practice this shape a few times if you are inexperienced to warm up your hand muscles. Like a surgeon, you want to be confident and precise. You are an athlete, an artist. Your muscles are your greatest asset. Some more than others. Next, we draw some balancing lines to help us make sure the features are evenly placed. Okay, now the next thing, you add some shades so you can tell where things go, okay? The shading is where you look at the light and the dark. Hey, no copying, buddy. Rude. Now, next we can add some stronger features like eyebrows and eyes. The eyes are, of course, the windows to the soul, so they're very important. I think it's looking pretty good so far, no? How about we check back over with how Banjo is going? All right, get at that paper, good dog. I think that's pretty good. Looks the same as anything Matisse and Picasso have done, if not better. Yes. Yeah. Well, photorealism does not equate to artistic talent. replicating real life comes at the cost of expression and interpretation. So let's just say that Vincent Banjo, for his incompetence, lost more than his ear. Well, keep practicing, you lolly peasants. Maybe one day you will come within a fraction of my talent. Au revoir.
Well, would you look at that? The odds that Vincent Banjo will replace Ando in Ando's Brush with Fame next season has massively shortened in the last few minutes to $1.50.
Excuse me, I've kind of got a show to go on with. Right. Well, with the easing of restrictions in some parts of Australia being based around vaccination rates, it seems that vaccine passports will be the ticket to re-enter society. This means that vaccinated Aussie citizens will hold an Australian passport as well as a vaccine passport, which, come to think of it, might reignite some dual citizenship issues again. Maybe that's the real reason why anti-vaxxers don't want to get the jab. Speaking of the unvaccinated, let's cross to Chantel Sandalwood now to see how they're faring.
As a former reality TV star, what do you do when your 5 minutes of fame are up? For most of us, we desperately try to hold on to relevancy like a stage 5 clinger. But recently, Sam Frost chose to claim her 5 minutes of infamy by going on a bit of an anti-vax rant. But many were quick to criticize the Home and Away actor. To be fair though, maybe life on Summer Bay is just like that on Byron Bay where COVID simply doesn't exist. Hence there's no need for vaccination. Look, Sam's been out of the reality TV world for a while now, so she might have forgotten some of the general fundamental rules, and none are bigger than the concept of fake outrage. You know, like threatening to storm off the sets, that's fine, pouring a drink on someone's head, okay, deciding not to choose anyone in the Bachelor's finale, gold standard material. But weighing in on a divisive social issue, that's a big no-no. Remember Sam, fake outrage, not real. Leave the health advice to the experts like medical professionals, frontline workers and right-wing commentators. On the bright side, if this whole incident does lead to Sam being cancelled, at least a video that got her into trouble at the first place could double as the Sky News of the shit tape.
And yes, it's time for another market update from Moorbet. This time, a new market has completely opened in the last few minutes, the next TV production in Australia to have a positive COVID case. At the moment, Home and Away is sitting at the clear favourite position, followed closely by...
Mate, seriously, get a life. Sorry about that. We're off to a quick break. Welcome back again. Well, over the past couple of years, we've become very used to hearing a variety of different numbers. Whether that be R numbers, 4 square meters, 5k radius, or 80% vaxxed, a variety of numbers are being spruiked by governments. But one number being shied away from at a federal level is that of net zero emissions. The federal government has been dragging its heels about going carbon neutral, with Prime Minister Scott Morrison yet to commit to attending the UN Climate Change Conference. For more on Scott Morrison, let's cross now to Claude Fonet.
Sacre bleu! Let's talk about the man from marketing. From giving himself a personal exemption to travel between 2 lockdown locations for Father's Day, to insulting the people of bushfire-affected regions by trying to shake their hands while they grieve. This man seems convinced of his own self-importance, despite this apparent disconnect with the people he represents. Now, this personally reminds me of a scourge the French have long since done away with. If you cannot see the similarities between Scott Morrison and King Henry VIII, let me enlighten you. Both of these boys are masters of the art of public relations. Kind of. King Henry VIII wore oversized baggy clothing to hide his obesity, and Scott Morrison, of course, has a background in marketing and also was fortunate enough to receive $100,000 worth of empathy training, so they both have a good understanding of how they should appear to the public. They both believe they have a divine right to rule, kind of. They both believe in funding a naval defense, and they both aren't really sure how to handle women. Let's hope no further similarities appear for the sake of Scott Morrison's wife, am I right? Anyway, see you next time. Au revoir.
Thanks, Claude. Former Prime Minister Tony Abbott's recent trip to Taiwan has caused a bit of a stir, in which he was critical of China and called for countries to support Taiwan. While some were worried that Abbott's comments may have caused tensions between China and Australia, that seems to ignore Abbott's proven track record of expertly handling diplomatic relations.
Look, I'm going to shirt front Mr. Putin.
Either way, whether he's overseas or in Oz, Tony is never really out of the spotlight. So let's cross to our culinary conspiracist for more.
The headlines of late have been dominated by New South Wales politics and their changing leadership. But as one coalition crumbles, another rises, and all this talk about Gladys and John has been a distraction from the subtle political associations that have been forming over the past couple months. What exactly is this cabal? Let's look at a brief history, shall we? In June 2021, Barnaby Joyce was fined for not wearing a mask in public. In September 2021, Tony Abbott was fined for not wearing a mask in public. And in October 2021, Daniel Andrews was fined for not wearing a mask in public. An unmasked link between the current Deputy Prime Minister, a former PM, and a dictator. I know this trio may not be the most likely of alliances, especially since Tony's pro-Taiwanese comments might not sit well with Dan and the Chinese stooge. But let's recognise this for what this truly is. Anti-masking is bringing together people from across the entire political spectrum. At a time where political bickering is more rife than Dominic Perrottet mispronunciations, isn't removing our masks something we should be celebrating, not stigmatising? Regardless if you're Liberal or Labour, a surfer or a farmer, capitalist or communist, now is the time to free your face and join the unmasked union.
Just in case you're wondering, that piece wasn't entirely factually correct. And there aren't that many Dominic Perrottet mispronunciations, are there? Wait, Perrottet? Perrottet. Terrape, that's the one. Anyway, moving on now, and after France was blindsided by Australia for terminating their $90 billion contract to buy French submarines in favour of the nuclear-powered American subs, France froze all contact with Australia. And in what is being described now as these tensions easing, the French ambassador to Australia will be returning to Canberra. For more on this issue, we are joined again by Claude Fournet. Claude Fournet, thank you so much for joining us.
Oui, you should be thankful.
Claude Fournet, why was France so upset about this contract termination?
Why were we upset? I'm sorry, I don't know how you'd feel if you lost $90 billion, but I personally am very affronted. Now, I don't honestly care if Australia does not want our submarines. However, I do care about the $90 billion that we have lost. You have stabbed France in the back. You have stabbed me in the back.
Claude Fournet, sorry to interrupt you, but can I just ask, wasn't the cost of these French submarines blowing the budget, the project delayed, and the effectiveness of these diesel-powered submarines in contention?
You want to discuss its fuel, huh? Our initial submarine designs were nuclear-powered. You want to complain about the design flaw you had done. You know what? If this is the standard of journalism that is going to be accepted on this show, I don't know if I should stay. I'm done, I think. I'm done. Goodbye. Goodbye, struggle.
Claude Fernet, before you go, what do you think of these submarines causing an arms race?
What? Arms race? Who said anything about an arms race? Did you say that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Won't they just increase tensions in the region? And could this potentially even undermine Australian security rather than ensure it?
Look, I am not really an expert per se on the international intricacies of politics.
Claude Fernet, thank you for joining us. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Oh, a little bit of respect. Maybe there is some hope for you yet. I tell you what, I give the struggle another chance. Au revoir.
Right then.
Back one last time. But you might not like the sound of the next odds. The odds for the struggle being back next year, they're quite high at the moment.
What makes you say that? We won 2 awards at the Antennas last month.
Exactly. Grant Denyer theory. You can only win awards if your show's been axed and Tom Gleeson is your friend. Anyway, happy summer holidays to everyone, and always remember to gamble responsibly.
Well, that brings us to the end of the episode and the season. It's been a one-off show for us on Channel 31 this season. Thanks, COVID. But we'll be back on your screens next year, depending, of course, on COVID rates, vax rates, and whether a wave, COVID-related or climate change-related, wipes us all out. But for now, the struggle. It's real.